Hello, and welcome to Runkle of the Bailey. My name is Ian Runkle. I'm a Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer. So normally I sort of try to keep to three rules. One is legal-focused issues, two, Canadian-focused issues, and three, minimal to no politics. And today I'm going to break all of those rules because as much as I try to sort of keep this to legal education and information, sometimes you just need a good soapbox rant, and this is an issue that really calls for one. This is definitely a Scotch video. I kind of wish I had some cheaper, crappier Scotch, something with a real painful burn to kind of take the taste of this story out of my mouth. And so if you haven't figured it out yet, this is a story about Kamala Harris. And recently going around Twitter has been a quote from Kamala Harris, and I'll just read that here. I understand it's from an Elle magazine piece. So the Elle magazine piece goes, Senator Kamala Harris started her life's work young. She laughs from her gut the way you would with family as she remembers being wheeled through an Oakland, California civil rights march in a stroller with no straps with her parents and her uncle. At some point, she fell from the stroller. Few safety regulations existed for children's equipment back then, and the adults, caught up in the rapture of protest, just kept on marching. By the time they noticed little Kamala was gone and doubled back, she was understandably upset. My mother tells the story about how I'm fussing, Harris says, and she's like, Baby, what do you want? What do you need? And I just looked at her and I said, Freedom. And it's spelled with a W, so it's freedom. How incredibly twee. This is a way too cutesy story, but right away when I'm looking at this, I start looking at this with the eye of a defense lawyer. And a defense lawyer, one of the key things you do in practice is you start looking at stories people are telling, and you look for the angles where you can start taking them apart, because there's certain things that just say a story is probably BS, and that you can start using those points as leverage in order to say, hey, maybe this never happened. So first of all, they're at this civil rights march in a stroller with no straps. You'd think that the parents would be aware of this risk and be monitoring the kid, but maybe not. I mean, parenting is tough. I'm not a parent myself, but I understand stuff happens. But this kid falls out, and the adults, caught up in the rapture of protest, just kept on marching. And no one around goes, hey, kid just fell out of that stroller. Or, hey, there's a kid sitting on the pavement here. Maybe that's a thing. I mean, I can get that the parents and the uncle might have been a little caught up and might have missed this and somehow didn't walk over the kid who would have been directly underfoot once they fall out of the stroller. But nobody notices and nobody says, hey, your kid is on the ground right here, So this part I have some issues with. And, she's a kid of the age to be falling out of a stroller. And so this is a surprisingly adult sort of thought. Sometimes kids say things above their years, but usually not from the stroller. This is way too much of a literal mouths of babes story. There's an old internet meme about, which goes, and then everybody started clapping for these stories people tell about themselves and their lives that are just too perfect, that are just too textbook, sort of hitting all the issues that are just made up. And this is really and then everybody started clapping story. So I have some serious issues with this story, but just looking at this story, maybe that's not enough to go, hey, I need a belt of scotch for this. But it gets better, because I'm going to read a quote from Martin Luther King. And, I'm not the one who discovered this. Some other people reported on this. I'm not I'm not the guy who did the homework on this one, but I really just want to kind of rant. So I'm going to swap in for one of the words in the quote, because Martin Luther King lived in a different time. But I never will forget a moment in Birmingham when a white policeman accosted a little black girl, 7 or 8 years old, who was walking in a demonstration with her mother. What do you want? The policeman asked her gruffly, and the little girl looked him straight in the eye and answered, Feed 'em. She couldn't even pronounce it, but she knew. It was beautiful. Many times when I've been in sorely trying situations, the memory of that little one has come into my mind and has buoyed me. So, This one seems a lot more plausible to me. You've got a older girl, 7 or 8 years old, not in a stroller. Nobody's putting an 8-year-old into a stroller, maybe a wagon or something, and is being accosted by a police officer who might, in the era, this seems a little more plausible. But this is an age where a kid might be able to respond with that, where a kid's got some understanding. That answer is superficial for a kid who's of that age, but it's age appropriate. It's not a kid in a stroller. So, and it sort of lost a lot of the embellishments. This story is a lot more plausible. But, I mean, cribbing off Martin Luther King on a civil rights story? This is like submitting your term paper and you've copied, not just, copied, but you've decided to copy from the prof's own thesis. Come on. Like, did you not think that people would notice this? Now, there is the possibility that Miss Harris was told this story by her parents, and maybe her parents are the source of the embellishment. I don't know, but I don't buy this story for a hot second. And it just kind of ties in with a rant that I have ongoing, and the rant sort of goes like this, which is that there's a lot of people sort of in progressivism, and I'm going to note, I lean farther left than most people watching my channel might assume. I tend to have sympathy for a lot of these causes, but what I really cannot abide is the deep hypocrisy that I see over and over again, where we have people like Kamala Harris, who spent her life implementing very authoritarian lock-them-up policies, including policies that would have, that lock up parents for their child's truancy, which of course are going to be aimed primarily at low income and of course people of color, because, when you're talking about people who are struggling, those are the people who are sort of being, in the more struggling positions. So these policies are aimed directly at the people that she now claims to be a champion of all of her life. And in fact, she's done interviews where she was laughing about this and, joking about it. So we've got all of these people who really their policies don't stand up for supporting the people they claim to be champions of. And they'll actually laugh about it. They find it hilarious a lot of the time. I see left-wing politicians here in Canada who talk about how they're big on workers' rights and, big on farmers. But if you actually sat them down in a room with, with most blue-collar workers or most farmers in Canada, they would have a hard time not showing contempt. They don't like the values of these people. They don't like the opinions of them. They don't like their hobbies. They don't like what they do. They wish, in fact, that these blue-collar workers and farmers were people more like them, people who were more enlightened and so forth. And this kind of hypocrisy where you say, I support this, and while still kind of holding a dripping contempt back, it doesn't fool anybody. When the left sits there wondering, why don't we have the support of workers and farmers? Well, because you don't like them, and they can tell. Like, it's not hard. This is really not complicated math here. So, but they make up these, they wrap themselves in this clothing of righteousness. And this is sort of an example here. It looks to me like Harris is trying to sort of rewrite her story to be this, champion of things that, frankly, her life doesn't support. So we've got this incredibly cutesy story that doesn't seem to have, the ring of truth. If somebody testified to this on the stand, I'd be sitting there with a big old grin just waiting for my turn. Like, ooh, oh boy, I get to cross-examine on this. This is going to be fun. Who does she think we are? Who does she think she is? Anyway, yeah, it's frustrating as hell. And stuff like this is one of the reasons why I drink. Anyway, thank you for watching. And sometimes you get worked up about something and you might leave the house and then realize, oh wait, I'm going to need my house keys. Or maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just an attention deficit thing. But I almost closed this video out without the appropriate thank yous. So thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Sorry to sort of venture into the political, but this just ticked me off, and I really kind of wanted to rant to you guys. Thank you as well to my Patreon supporters at the $50 level, Demo, Sir Daniel Wicks of Alberta, Canada's National Firearms Association, and Toronto Airsoft. At the $20 level, Cameron Johnson, Kevin Fleet, and Dale Nesbitt. And at the $10 level, my buddy Keith, Process Eng, General Counsel of the CCFR, John Robinson, TR, Roy Haddock, Freckles Dack, Jean-Alexandre Tessier, Sir Goat, Sights and Arms Limited, Chaba Hollow, Craig Kwan, Akin Coxall, North Central Process Service, Toys Are for Boys, Ian Vaughn, Milan Brekic, Terrence Griffiths, Doug Thompson, Mark D., Brad Crooker, Jason Harrington, Lee Kiso, Mark Stout, Michelle Stotzel, Scott Sweetman, Mike Rhodes, DF, Stacey Cartmell, Tactical Advantage TV Canada, Ian S., Dave Leslie, Juan, Stefan Conquest, Darren Duell, Sean Crane, Pete H., Ian Hutchinson, Travis, BC Bushcraft Leather, John Singarty, Misa Komarevich, All Systems Go, Ian Hedgedanek, Hello from Venezuela, Taylor Delnea, Rod Guzman, Matthew Nesbitt, James Cox, Zip Ties and Bias Plies, Daniel Kang, Jean-Guy Toussaint, Richard, Brock Watts, Frog Clan Copper, Annika Bain, Tim McGill, Jordan Delaney, Rob Butts, Chris Joseph, Grant Farquhar, Malcolm Yogi, Andrew Elsich, Roberto Selbach, and Dimako, as well as Texan Diesel. Thank you once again, and I hope this has armed you with knowledge, although really this was just kind of a rant. Let me know if this is something you want me to knock it off on, but yeah, I kind of just wanted to share this. It's infuriating. Anyway, thank you for watching. Cheers.